We are recording.
Cool. It does strike me as interesting, honestly, when the kind of criticism you get is always it's just fascinating to me, the criticism that you get, and often it feels like people are saying that you're like indiscernible in some way, and my instinct is to think, why don't these people just consider that they might not understand rather than that you're not understandable? Like that's my instinct. So but I also recognize that I might be wrong in that instinct. Like but on the other hand, I have this like real impulse to defend you, and I know that that's because that I'm like, I feel the same. Like I'm defending you, but I'm defending me, you know? Like I think that it's just a little bit incomprehensible to me that that would be another person's instinct, and yeah, we're different people and whatever. But I'm also like I'm an artist, and I'm intuitive, and I'm a very gut-based human being. So I like, yeah, I'm a gut player. I don't this is one of the things I said in the email to you was, in my book I talk about like head brain, heart brain, and gut brain. And I think that there is a head-brained person that only knows to think in that way, and then there are people that think from different parts of their body. So like heart brain and gut brain feel more prominent to me. And so I struggle with this kind of the Claire thing is like, I think that kind of person really acts from head brain, and when gut brain and heart brain are in play, that kind of person is immediately triggered and kind of threatened by that. So in terms of TLC, it sometimes feels like a very head-brain arena. Whereas I think heart brain and gut brain are equally important brains. Yeah, so that's basically the thing I'm contending with is like, what is thinking actually, and how much can we only think from head brain, and are gut brain and heart brain equally important, and how do we make space for that? And actually, is this space just not available for that? Or Am I wrong or is this wrong? That's
I think
kind of how I feel.
so. I think it's really hard. There's one thing I thought of, which I talked when you were talking, because
Mhm.
I think this space can do that, and I think it needs to because it can't just be dominated by head
Mhm.
stuff. But yet at the same time, it's a YouTube is kind of that, and I would say very much in an information-based economy where people are using information, and especially clippable information and short form
Mhm.
information, just to go viral and get attention and making money. Like when that's the whole
Yeah.
mechanism of how the thing works, that's just going to be inevitable. But what's interesting is
Mhm.
it's like using head brain stuff, propositional stuff, information based stuff to trigger a kind of gut or emotional reaction, which is what holds your attention. So it's messing with all that stuff. But I wanted to share this screen
Mhm.
because I mean I love talking about the Enneagram because it's exactly what you're talking about. So like in the Enneagram, there's a can you see well, I don't know if you can see all the
Yeah, I
numbers,
can
but
see. And I'm
so
an 9
yeah.
by
So
like,
like
I know you're
9 is a
4.
gut. You're in the gut
Yeah.
triad, right?
Yeah.
So like the Enneagram is broken up into these triads, which is why I like it this way. And so that's kind of the brains. That's what you're talking about. Are you a gut brain, which is very and the negative emotion of that is probably rage. Anger is the primary sin of a lot of these,
Mhm.
especially the 9 actually, which this says
Mhm.
8. That's 9, peacemaker, sorry. So anger is your sin. I'm a 4, so like shame is my sin. And then
Mm.
but I'm like in the heart triad, the feeling triad. So this is very much
Mhm.
mine. And then 5, 6, and 7 is the thinking, the head triad. And fear is their thing. Because those all correlate, thinking, fear, feeling,
Do
shame,
you mind if I ask,
gut, rage.
you know anything about your astrology? This is like so, um, this is also something I've had to talk to my priest about because, I was like super into astrology before I became Christian and became Orthodox and stuff. And actually, it did help me make sense of some things, um, to understand my astrology. So if it's a question you don't want to answer, that's fine. But I'm also curious if you know anything about it and if you've ever looked into that.
So, yes, I do know some. So I don't know if you know these people in the corner, but so Jonathan Demir, for example, who does a lot of
Mhm.
clips, he is around. He's really into astrology. I mean, there's people in the corner who are really into it, and he's done. It's hard for me. Like, if I were to go deep into it, I'd have to really pay a lot of attention because all the technical stuff and how to talk about it, I'd have to spend a lot of time so I could even talk about it intelligently. But he's done. I have somewhere. I can maybe share
Mm.
it with you because we did a video and I think it's on my YouTube, but it's maybe private or something where he did my like, birth chart,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
like whether it's ascendant or descendant and all these
Yeah,
different details.
it's the big 3. It's like your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant is the main
Right.
thing that you need to know to, like, make sense of it, but yeah.
And so I didn't want to make it public because it just gives very
Mhm.
it gives very like I mean it's your birthday and all that kind of stuff. It gives very detailed
Yeah,
information
yeah.
about because those things really matter because apparently when I
Mhm.
was born and the time of day when I was born it was like there was a shift happening. And
Mm.
so I mean broadly I'm a Scorpio. Um I know that um which tends to make
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense.
Um
I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart too, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I think a lot of that stuff is legitimate. I think the kinds of people who, make fu I mean, you don't wanna turn it into or your map, your understanding of it, you don't wanna turn into an idol, but all of it is valuable stuff, so,
Yeah, it's the same with
I think
all
it's
of
like
these
modernists who deny it.
personality, like Enneagram, and also what's the thing called that's like the INFP, INFJ, like
Myers-Briggs stuff, yeah.
the Myers-Briggs stuff and astrology. Like, yeah, we're all, some of us, trying to understand ourselves better. So these modes of self-understanding are helpful and valuable as long as we don't make them into idols. Yeah, just what you said. But yeah,
Or
they
like
have been helpful.
unchanging, because you're just like, if you start saying like, and this is Rod, my friend Rod, or a lot of people will tell me this, like if you start if the whole of your identity is just like, I am an Enneagram 4, or I am an ENFP, or
Yeah.
I am a fill-in, I mean, that's identitarianism. You take any
Yeah.
label, Christian can become that too, although I would say
Mm.
Christianity properly understood is the one area where you can't really do that, or a person, but like to me, those things
Mm.
ultimate reality collapses. Like this is a conversation I've been
Mm.
having with friends recently where I'll say stuff and people will be like, well, that's unfalsifiable. And I'm like, yeah, well, any ultimate thing is unfalsifiable. Like you can't falsify reality. And I understand I'm just
Yeah.
talking about that in language, but like to
Mm.
me, to be a human, to be a person, to be a Christian is all, they're just different ways of saying the same thing. And so, but Christianity, being a person includes, it's why I like the Jordan Daniel Wood, like Christologic, which is the identity of identity and non-identity, or the Tao. So like, you can't absolutize that because it includes the opposite. It's an antinomy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ultimately paradoxical. This is what I'm learning more and more, is that the thing that I think I am, I'm also the opposite of it.
Yes.
And this is never ending. Like this is it will never be fixed. So that's actually the ultimate identity, is understanding that identity is not a fixed thing.
Yes.
I'm always going to have to accept that I'm also the opposite of what I think I am. And that is so difficult. This
Yep.
is what I mean when I'm constantly making this point about riding a bicycle. Like, you have to keep moving to stay on the bicycle, right? So, to think that there was gonna be one thing I could, like, hitch myself onto, and that would be the thing, and, then I would be fixed or stable or something, and what I'm learning more as I grow up is that it's probably this constantly mobile thing, that it will never stay still.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to accept the reality of uh, constant movement, and that is just gonna be a difficult reality I have to accept. And that mostly people find that difficult. People find that very difficult to do. Many people I try and relate to are very obsessed with like the false reality of stability. Um, and that's what actually makes it difficult for us to relate to each other, is they want to stay still and I want to accept the reality of constant movement.
Yeah.
So when people are telling me, that I have to deny reality, and I'm like, but I can't, I just can't do that. Um, that's that's actually what the tension here is, that you are truly convinced that the name of the game is to pretend that what is happening is not happening. And I'm like, the name of the game is to try and accept reality. So this is the tension we live in. Yeah.
So I want to reply to that and then tie it back into what we said earlier, this space, and talk a little about TLC and why I participate in it. But like even what you just said right there, like that's the so like this is like what Matt C made, this little meme of Simone Weil and like being the prisoner tapping on the wall.
Yeah.
Because
And
like
I
it's that,
love that, by the way, like that book, Gravity and Grace, is one of my favorite books. Like it
yeah.
really is profound to me.
Yeah.
That
So
whole
it's
book.
like so there's two images. So there's that, and this is related to what you were talking about, where the thing that separates you is the communication. And so like you can't, if you eliminate the thing that's separating you, like I would almost say like that is the delusion. Like that is what Rollins would call probably the libidinal pursuit of the lack. If we could just get this wall of separation gone, then we could really commune. But I think the false idol in that is like that is really colonization. You want the other to accept the reality that paradox is reality, but they want to stay in the reality instability and in the denial of that, and so like that's the wall separating you, which is what allows for the communion, and you want that to collapse. But like if it collapsed, it wouldn't work. It would be the Ouroboros. It would be the totalizing thing. And this is where this is why Christ and Antichrist are a hair's breadth, because it's so damn tricky. And so like it reminds me of the image. This is why I love Jess P so much, and even David Busatil, where Jess has had this image. I have it saved on my phone somewhere. Who's the guy? I forget his name, but he had there's two images. There's Job. There's like Jesus standing on the water and Job under the water, like set up as a mirror image of like life and death. And then there's also the idea of, because David Busatil's channel is Leviathan at play, and Jess is obsessed with Job. And so there's that image of what Jesus is, I think, rather than Jonah going under the water and thrown out of the boat, swallowed by the whale, Peter sinking in the water, Job being figuratively, metaphorically underwater in his suffering. Jesus is the one who he transcends the chaos in that he walks on the water, and Leviathan are like the scales of the whitecaps almost in the water. And Jesus is like walking on the scales of chaos, where he doesn't water is not chaos to him. Dark is not dark to him. Like he learns to play with Leviathan, which is the monster that everyone fears. And to tie all that back into this space, and to like what we had talked about, emailed about talking about, which was speaking as impressionist painting, and kind of like as a mosaic, and then you want to tie in some other things to that, the head and the heart and the gut, and is that that's kind of, I think, how my mind works and what I want to do, because in a sense I'm talking people could say the channel's very heady and big ideas and whatever, but in a confusing way. And somewhat that is just the way that I'm wired, but it's also intentional, because it is an impressionist painting. Because anytime, if I ever try to make it too clear, what is actually happening is that wall is being eliminated and it's collapsing into a thing where, like, because the second you think you understand, you don't understand anymore.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be true if it was more like quote unquote clear. I don't think it would be true. So this is the point I was making on your last, the thing I spoke on, was that it's unfortunate that it makes me angry. I wish it didn't make me angry. I've been so angry recently. But that's my fault. Like that's my problem. But I also think that the point I was trying to make was that there's a clarity that is beyond linear conventional language. And I mean, I sent you my book. This is what I was trying to do in my book, was communicate. And actually the idea of it was, so I recognized that as a neurodivergent person, I'm always doing this work of translation. I'm always trying to make the words in my head become neurotypical coded language, as opposed to just like letting them be what they are. And so I tried to write a book that was, if I just let the words in my head be communicated the way that they are without translating, what would that sound like? Like what would that look like? That was the whole attempt of that project. Which, and again, like, no one's ever going to read this. It's completely like unmarketable. No one's going to ever publish this or read this. But I do think it was a valuable thing for me to do, to figure out like what would that look like actually if I didn't translate constantly, and if I just tried to figure out what it would look like if my head like blurted itself out as it is. And that, yeah, it was an interesting thing to do. And I think maybe this is the project of my life, of my existence, to just try and like quote unquote be myself, as opposed to constantly trying to make myself understandable to people that are that are not like me. This is what I'm trying to do now. This is why I'm talking to you, is that I think that there are people that the vast majority of people are not going to understand me. And same thing that you say a lot, like, I'm not going to be understood. But then maybe there are people, it's not everyone, but there are people who are like you, who need to hear you almost like untranslated. Like, is it more useful to be understandable by the vast majority of people, or is it more useful to be understood by the few people who need to know that there is somebody else like me? Because for me, I very much value hearing from someone who is like me, untranslated. So this is kind of the thing with Claire and I mean other people who are kind of critical of the things that who are trying to suggest that it, like, you'd be heard by more people if you were different. I'm just like, but you'd be heard by the right people if you decided to not be different. That's the thing. And so when I'm, trying to like when I went onto your stream the other day and was like vehemently trying to like defend you, and as I said, I'm also trying to defend me when I defend you, but I'm also trying to say, and this is what I did with my book, and this is what I'm trying to always do, is just say, well, maybe we just all need to be speaking to the people that need to hear that they don't need to be different, like, they don't need to change. We just, like, can actually be ourselves, and that's maybe that's okay. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe that's okay.
Yeah, it's well, I think all of that is great and it's okay, and I like talking to people who, well, there's a few things. So I think first off, I feel like I've lived long enough and I've had enough relationships and with enough people of a variety of things that um I know this isn't fully true because it'll change tomorrow and this will be a lie, but I have I am dying. I am continually dying and being renewed. I guess the renewing of my mind to the idol of being understood.
Mhm.
Because whenever I think I have it, I don't have it. Because I'll find somebody like this. Like I guarantee you and I hang out enough and we talk enough. I'll be like, Wombo and I are really similar, and she understands me and she gets it, and we have that solidarity, and that feels comfortable and peaceful. And like that rug will be pulled out if we spend enough time together, guaranteed.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so I know that. And also part of what even broader abstractly when I things I talk about on the channel with like real true meaningful pluralism and stuff that I've talked about a little bit with Daniel of OG Rose, and not being siloed, or I have sayings like I want to canonize the heretic. Part of what I don't want to just create different kinds of silos of people who uh, like I don't want my channel and like what I do on YouTube to just be a bunch of people who are like intuitive, empathic, nuance
Mhm.
seeking people who just come together and like, oh, like yes, not now we have it, because that's the whole
Yeah.
libidinal pursuit of the lack thing that I talk about,
Yeah.
because you
I get
don't.
that. Yeah.
And then it will just be like a new you're just setting up a new tower, mini Tower of Babel silo that will eventually collapse and then leave you alone. Again, it's that Simone Weil thing. And so the people who the people who what's really hard is it's a hard tension to live in, because I think it's the whole Christianity hasn't been tried and found wanting. It's been found difficult and never tried. It's the real enemy love. The people who criticize me, both those who love me and hate me, because I have people who criticize me, both who love me and hate me. Um, like Phlebas is one of those guys who's constantly coming after me. Like he said, I
Mhm.
almost feel like finding the YouTube comment, and I think he's right. And I think he's right. Nick has been coming after me hard but for both of those guys, I think it's because they love me. I really do think it's
Well,
because they love me.
yeah, for sure, because they wouldn't, like, watch you otherwise. This is like Claire wouldn't tune into every single one of your streams if she didn't also find you appealing. This is what I was trying to say before. Like, I think what you're trying to do, which is a really difficult thing to do, is reach both the people that need to hear you because they are exactly the same as you, and the people
Mhm.
that need to understand that there are people like you who exist that are different from them. Like it's this both and kind
Mhm.
of um, paradox that is so like difficult. It's such a difficult line to walk. So I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to do both of those things simultaneously. I think that that is an almost impossible project that you have assigned
Yeah,
yourself.
it's
Um,
insane. It's it's what someone who's totally nuts would do.
yeah, yeah,
Here, I'm gonna show Phlebas's
that
content,
would be
and I'll also put the caveat of I don't Okay, let's zoomy. Can we zoom? Can we zoom? Can we do this screen? Are we not allowing it? Oh my goodness. That was so dumb. I had the
Why
comment and
is
then it went away.
everyone obsessed with Jews? Nice.
So he was, I gotta find it because it was good. I have too many comments.
Uh,
Here, so this is my what is truly valuable stream.
oh yeah,
And
I
Phoebe
saw
said,
this, and I didn't really read it properly, but yeah, let's look into this because
so he
I
says
was.
you're halfway, but this isn't your idolatry. Your idolatry is believing that if they understood, they'd obviously agree. And I said, I think that, and I said, I think if we all understood each other in the fullness of what we mean, we would all agree. And that's kind of what I mean by like, I think in the end, nobody really disagrees because reality is one. And in as much as we're all participating in reality, like that's just, I really do think we all agree. It's that seemingly paradoxical opposite thing is we are all simultaneously perceiving reality as it is and
Mhm.
suppressing that in unrighteousness. Like we're doing both those things all the
Yeah.
time. And then Philippa said, yes, exactly. Your epistemology demands that others are not just understanding you, are just not understanding you, a very frustrating worldview to live out. In
Well,
humility, you should accept
it's
that they understand
interesting.
you and disagree.
Yeah, what your this thing that you play sometimes, the like the branding thing, where
Mhm.
I don't remember his name, but he says, I actually didn't realize that you're probably correct, but you
Yeah, I have a couple
whatever.
of them. People find them very annoying.
Yeah. Um, so the point that I'm like constantly trying to make with you is that I this insistence that you're actually right is wrong and right. You are probably like it's a bit of the lady doth protest too much. Like there is a part of it where you're insisting too much, you know, but then there's also a part of it that is a fight against the world's insistence that you're wrong. And I think that the people, it's a majority minority thing. Like, yeah, we don't want to just be speaking to the people that are highly sensitive and neurodivergent, whatever. But we also need to acknowledge that that's the minority of people. And so maybe we need more encouragement to stay ourselves just because there's less of us. That's it. Like that's the factual thing is that if you're being constantly told the opposite, you need to fight a bit harder to believe the truth. I think it's important that people exist, and it doesn't have to be like, therefore I think I'm special, therefore I think I'm, yeah, like it's easy to veer into that. And then there's also the fact that it takes a bit more muscle to stay true to yourself when you're different from everyone else. And I do believe that these people that we are need to exist. It's important that we are not moved to become more normal or like to move away from who we really are. Like I really do think this, and maybe this is just the fact of the matter is there's going to be less of us. We're going to feel different, and it's important that we stay true to who we are. So what will it take for us to stay true to ourselves? Sometimes that is going to feel like insisting a little bit too much. Like it seems like too much insistence, but if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And the people who love us are going to love us. The people who are disturbed by us are going to be disturbed by us. The people that are annoyed by us are going to be annoyed by us. But like, what our job is to not move, like to insist on the fact of our being. I just believe that that is the truth. And so when I see and again, this is why I'm like annoyingly like defending you and stuff. It's like when I recognize it's like a game recognized game. When I see someone else trying to do what I'm doing, I just feel impelled to say, yeah, like I see you when I'm like, you do you. Like this is like what it would be so helpful if someone did that for me, you know? Like, and so yeah, if I see someone else trying to do that, I'm gonna do it for them. And I get angry about it and I get annoyed and extremely emotional and stuff, but it's just the truth of our existence that there are few of us, and special doesn't have to mean like better also. You can feel special just because there aren't that many people that are like you. It doesn't mean that you're placing yourself value-wise above anyone else. It just means that you're defending your existence. I think that's an important thing to do. So sorry, that was a lot of talking. I just like
No, that's totally fine. I think that, so always thinking about 4 thoughts at once. I really am. It's like but it's all the same thing. So this is why I do this circumambulating thing to get to the mosaic impressionist thing. But it's like, so I think of the idea of the center and the fringe, because
yeah.
I've always felt this way. That's one of my Lukeism quotes is, and I didn't get this from Peugeot. I really didn't. Like I had this back a long time ago on X, way back in the day before the corner ever existed. I remember this tweet where I said, like, the conservative impulse, and I mean this probably temperamentally, is to want to normalize and exclude the fringe, and the progressivist kind of impulse is to want to normalize the fringe. And I said both are wrong. So like in what you were saying, I think use whatever label you want, whether it's neurodivergent, empaths, intuitives, people who acknowledge that there is no normal. Like I was even thinking about that, of like the bell curve. Like if every human being really is a completely unique, non-fungible entity, then there's no, then the normal is a myth. You're coming up with metrics that like try to collapse the thing, but yet simultaneously it's kind of true, because like on one unit of measurement you can plot on like a quantity thing, you can plot a graph and everything works out on that weird bell curve. And so there is a kind of normal, and I think there's a type of person who feels a lot of comfort in and there's a reason for this. Peterson will talk about it with, like, zebras, for example, womboy, like there's the they all look the same, because if they look different, if you just like put a giant neon orange streak on one of them, they would be picked off as the weird outlier, because then the lions could see them and they wouldn't blend in. Yes. So you have an impulse. There's a strong impulse to normalize, to like, don't look at me.
And I mean, it's like, I think we make the mistake of thinking that center and fringe are like equally, it's a quality versus quantity thing. I think center and fringe are equally valuable. However, they are not there's not gonna be the same number of center as there is fringe. Like fringe means that there will be less of you. Like that's what it means. It's not that it's not as important. It's just that there aren't as many.
Yeah.
So like, can we just accept that fact and also like not try and make the fringe the center, except that there is the center and there is the fringe. There's going to be less of the fringe, more of the center, but also like accept that that doesn't mean that we're less like there's less importance in there is no like I said, quality versus quantity. It is not I can't think of the words right now, but it does not denote like importance. It just denotes like quantity. Yeah, like there's just less of them.
Yeah. So I wanted to share this because this is kind of what I mean because when I talk about the cosmic donut or a torus, like this, so like a torus is there's probably like a GIF of it, but it's this thing that just is constantly moving and evolving. So it's like give me a GIF, you weird thing. It won't, but you know what I mean. It's like it's the donut, so it's this image, but it's constantly moving. You know, from this center where it's a hole, and then it rotates out. So like this is a center and a fringe, and then even if you took like a cross section of that, it would look almost like a bell curve, which also looks a lot like a black hole. You know, like if you look at an image of a black hole from like let's just say, where is it? Stop. I'm gonna stop it. But so like one of the best images I think that they've been made so far is that is like this. I think it's probably it's like this kind of image from this is the image from Interstellar, right? I think. So, but this, like if you think about that, even in more dimensions where like it's wrapping around, you're just seeing it from one perspective, but that whole thing is like a cosmic donut, but it's also kind of a bell curve. And so like that to me is just like I think it's just a shape of how everything is. That's how I see it. Like a person is like this actually. Where like at their core there's an infinite generative but simultaneously like unmappable, you can't even see it, essence from which everything that is visible flows out of. It's also the same thing as like the book Little Big that I read, which he talks about. It's where I heard the term like infundibular, which is basically the same idea of like a Russian nesting doll, where like you just go in and in and in, and it's wheels within wheels, circles within circles, and at the core is
rings.
It's fairy.
Rings within rings, things behind
Yes.
things. Yeah, 100%.
And I think everything is that way, but it's not so like but that even that is like it's an antimony, it's a paradox, like a black hole. There's order and chaos within it, and it's constantly moving, and it has many, many things, but it's also a thing. But anytime you think that you can just map it to what it is, it shifts. You know, or it's even like the double slit experiment, like wave and particle. You can't ever just put your hands around it.
Yeah, you can't, and that is, I think, maybe the distinction between I mean, maybe this defines our ability to relate or not relate to other people, is how willing are you to accept, not like grasp the whole thing, but accept that you will never be able to grasp the whole thing. I really feel that way, that there are people who are so unwilling to grasp the thing, or no, so unwilling to accept that they can't grasp the thing, that they will insist on this false belief that they have grasped the thing by pretending. And what I cannot anymore tolerate in some way is this pretending. Yeah, like I'm kind of over it. And I mean, maybe my cope is just as much of a cope as their cope, right? Like they are pretending to grasp the thing, and I am insisting on the fact that we cannot ever grasp the thing. And we're
Mm-hmm.
both just trying to survive. Like,
Yep.
fair enough. But
Yeah.
also, then there's like a bridge between us that is difficult to walk across. Like, I can't pretend that much. I just can't. I cannot do it. And so um, that's what I'm probably struggling with the most right now, is trying to find a way to reach across to people who have decided that their cope is, I am convinced of this pretend thing, this pretend reality. And I'm like, but I can't pretend, so I don't know how to reach you. And that's hard. That's like a hard bridge to cross. It just feels quite impossible to me.
Like a death.
Yeah, like a death, like a tragedy, like just, these are some people like that are in like my family and stuff. I love you, but if I can't move to pretend and you can't move past pretend, then where do we meet?
This is
Um,
maybe a bridge could be this is something we've talked about a lot in the corner, but the serious play, or even like Sartori is probably leaning it into it the most, but it's the idea of kayfabe or LARPing is maybe, it's faking it till you make it. Maybe you gotta until you can really wrestle, you gotta pretend wrestle.
yeah, and like honestly, kayfabe is one of my favorite concepts. So I watched there's this funny documentary on Netflix that is about what's this guy's name? The wrestling guy. But anyway, he like created WWE.
Oh, Vince McMahon.
Yeah, that was like one of the best documentaries I've ever watched. Um, and then when I've heard, is it Eric? Yeah, Eric Weinstein talk about kayfabe, and just it helped me understand the way that I understand the world a lot. But because so much of what we are experiencing is just, when I say pretending, and when you talk about like LARPing, or um, there's comedy and kayfabe that is helping us move towards reality through a kind of comedic mode. But then there is kayfabe that is helping people. No, it's not really kayfabe, but there is pretending that is allowing people to stay deluded. And that is not something I'm willing to participate in. I really I'm not even placing a value judgment on this. I'm just saying, like, I can live in reality and also use comedy and kayfabe and LARPing to like deal with that, because reality is actually really hard to deal with. Or I can stay outside of reality and use comedy and kayfabe to stay outside of reality. Like, I need to live in reality. That's just as close to it as I can. I'm probably not even in it, but there's something about me, temperamentally, personality wise, that needs to be as close to reality as possible. And I also think that this is something that in our last conversation I didn't get to, but I talked to Paul about it in our conversation. Like, I think he asked something about like why orthodoxy, and there's something I said that was around, yeah, it's probably like temperamental also. Like, I'm an artist. I like the smells and the sounds and the pictures. That I think speaks to, like a lot of these conversations, especially like in the corner, about religion and what's the right one. Like, we'll argue about which one is more right. And some of it, truly, I do think is temperamental. I think I like the fact that orthodoxy speaks to my personality. I like the incense. I like the pictures. That doesn't negate the also fact that I think it's the one true faith. Like, I believe that, but I also think that sometimes these conversations are a bit futile, because what it comes down to is who are you, and what will bring you as close to Jesus as you can get. For me, that is orthodoxy. For someone else, that might be Catholicism. I don't like the 80s Vatican II vibe. I just don't like it's aesthetically unappealing to me. So that's just not gonna work for me. But that's not a question of what's more wrong or what's more right in some kind of objective sense. That's just who I am and what will get me there. So yeah, I just I guess there's a question in that, in what was it for you, that was the most appealing way to be a Christian for you?
So, I mean, I've talked about this before. So really, my conversion to Orthodoxy was like the most Protestant move ever. And we've talked about this a lot. Or like a long time ago in the corner, Jacob said that to me. Like he said it to me in kind of like an accusatory way, like, you converted to Orthodoxy, was so Protestant. And I'm like, yeah, yep. Because like that's true. It doesn't bother me. And it fits with my whole thing, because like if you can only know what you're initiated in, me
Mhm.
growing up as an evangelical mutt converting to Orthodoxy would be a Protestant move, because what else have I been
Mhm.
initiated in? Like, of course. But so what it really was, I mean, my broad story was I was when I moved to Minneapolis initially, like right after I'd got married, I was getting really serious about my faith. We ended up going to John Piper's Bethlehem
How old
Baptist
are you,
Church,
by the way? Sorry, if when you got
like
married?
right after college. So I don't know, 23, 24, 22,
Mhm.
23, 22, something like that. Probably 22.
And
And
from Where did you move from?
From South Dakota. So I grew up in
Okay.
South Dakota.
Okay.
So that's like the state directly. I don't know how much US geography. Straight
No, yeah.
west. But very rural. So like Minneapolis to most people is a small town. It was a very big town for me at the time. And this is all like pre-smartphones, pre-modern internet, pre-Google Maps. So like even orienting yourself was complicated. So that would have been like,
It was a work thing. Like it was your job or your wife's job, like something.
yeah, it was like an education move.
Okay.
So education and then job, and that's where I was working as a chemist at that time.
Oh
But
yeah.
that's what my education was in. But then so I started getting serious about faith, and then like I know I'm like, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta make it my own. I gotta like stop messing around, which is and we ended up at John Piper's church, and I just never. John Piper is a very compelling, powerful, confident speaker in a lot of ways, and he was preaching through Romans, and there was a certain part of my brain that was very like it was super salient for me at the time. Like I heard John Piper preach for the first time, and I like fell in love. Like I became kind of obsessed. And things started like, this is where I say like my mind kind of came alive. Like that's one of the things that quickened my mind, I think. And then I remember going to I read the book Jonathan Edwards on the freedom of the will. So like I got into this big Puritans, Jonathan Edwards, free will thing. And I had never read a philosophical text like that. Like I remember the class. It's funny because this was like my entree into not being a normie anymore. I was always never that, but really. So like there were all these people taking the class, and the guy who was teaching it was pretty brilliant. And I remember everyone like reading this text, and then we'd all go and try to do the readings, and we'd come to the class, and basically everyone would just be like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Like I read this and it's unintelligible to me. But that was the beginning of just thinking about hard philosophical ideas that most people don't really think about, you know? And anyhow, that was just the beginning for me and that just kept going. So then my wife and I moved, did a lot of different churches, and it all culminated in, I was just always kind of reading the books that other people weren't reading. So that was the Young, Restless, and Reform movement, John Piper, those types of things. But then I was also reading like Rob Bell and Brian McLaren and emergent thinkers, like all this stuff from like the liberals. I was also reading all the liberal stuff within that camp. And then eventually the big thing for me was probably it's like 12 years old now on YouTube, I think, but I saw Chris Day debate this guy on the doctrine of hell and annihilationism. And so the doctrine of hell became a big thing. And I remember having and I think this is just true. So like based on my Protestant biblicist, like the Bible is the only authority convictions, I watched this debate. And I think on those terms, you could think of it like in an OG Rose, like in my own internally coherent system of like the Bible is the authority. If you are really honest about that and you approach the doctrine of hell, you will become an annihilationist. Like I just think on those terms, that is the viewpoint you should have. And that happened to me. And I saw that and I was just like, wait a minute. But like that's not the right view. And I had like kind of a liminal moment where the rug was pulled out and I was just like, oh man. And then I had that further step. I like fell off the peak of Mount Stupid, Dunning-Kruger. I was just like, I had this thing where I was like, okay, I realized I don't know anything about hell. I was very confident about hell and what it was and my understanding of all that. And then I realized I know nothing. And then I thought, what else don't I know about? And I was like, that's probably about everything. I probably know nothing about almost everything. And then I just started really researching hell. Like I went deep into that well for a long time. It's kind of like that Karen Wong thing. Like what subject or thing have you studied? It could be making clay pots. Like what have you done so much that you've realized there's no bottom? And hell became that for me. But then that fractally radiated out to everything intellectually. And I was always wanting to talk to people about it because we're supposed to search the scriptures and be Berean and make sure it corresponds to what is biblically true. And I was wanting to do that
Mhm.
about hell, and I found out nobody wants to do that. Like,
Mhm.
nobody really wants to
Yeah.
do that. Like we say we do. We give the Sunday school answer, like, of course we want to be Berean. But then if you try to actually do that about like hell, people don't want to do it.
Yeah,
And
most people like do not want to even think about that because it's scary. Of
right,
course it's scary.
which is fine, which is
Yeah.
fine. But then I say, well, then don't be dogmatic about it and tell other people they're wrong because you don't have a
Mhm.
clue. Like you don't really
Or
know
don't
anything about it.
advise other people to not think about it because some people like I'm the same. I cannot not think about it. I'm
Right,
similar in that, like, I cannot not think about hell or, like, what is the bottom of the bottom? That is what I am fascinated by, always, like,
right.
always maybe that's a defining feature of being, I don't know, like a sensitive person or something, but I just cannot not know. I really wanna know. This is, like, also my fascination with understanding, like, Israel and Jews and stuff, like, I really have gone down that rabbit hole to a point that I can't even talk about with most people because
I do want to
they
have. We should talk about that. LukeBui too
think
should be
about
about
that
the
next year.
Jews and Ethiopian Jews and all that stuff because I don't know
Yeah,
a ton about it and I'd like to know more.
yeah,
So to just wrap it up, I that went into a
mhm,
long story about how I became Orthodox. Is I kept trying to talk about people about things, kept uh, fe being left so unsatisfied. uh, I was biblically and intellectually, divine erosly unfulfilled, and
mm,
and what really happened, and I've said this, it was my wife's initiation because at that point I had like researched on Wikipedia like apophatic and cataphatic theology, and I had realized somewhere in there that the Eastern Church is just fundamentally apophatic, mystical. Like that is the
mhm,
core of what it is mystical theology, whereas the West is not. I say that a lot. You'll find mystics in the West, but it's not
yeah,
normative. And so I knew all that at that point. And but the thing was is I was so upset all the time because of all this we were talking about. I was just like,
mm,
everyone's lying. You all say you want to believe the Bible, but then but you don't. Because
yeah,
when I try to talk to you about it, then you get mad at me.
yeah,
And I understand, and I don't want to force that on you, but then I also feel like a liar and like we're lying and we're not really doing what we say, and I just can't live in that lie. I can't
mhm,
I felt crazy all the time and upset, and I
yeah,
couldn't compartmentalize it because I couldn't just like leave it at church. So then I was upset at home all the time, and my wife was like, "We can't do this. Like if you
mhm.
can't go to this church and then like be okay at home," because for her, I mean, granted, she's just like, "You're not fun to be around,
So the
like you're
church you grew up
afraid."
in, was it like a evangelical, yeah, like a Protestant evangelical church?
Where I was at that time?
What you grew up in, like what the church you
So I
went to
I
when you
grew
were
up in like
young.
extreme rural Western South Dakota. Like it probably looks like the American US version of like extremely rural Kenya, like where there's just like nothing
Yeah.
out there.
Um, so I'm
So
like
what
so obsessed. I'm so obsessed with the American South and the dream of my life is honestly to live on a cattle ranch and like learn to shoot guns and like grow vegetables. Like that is the that's the dream. So it's so interesting because if you grew up in that context, it probably is exotic to like Kenya is probably exotic. Like I see zebras on the road all the time. That's probably like extremely exotic to people who grew up.
Yeah,
But to me,
yeah.
um, rural. South, deep South is truly the most exotic thing I can imagine. And I just think that's so interesting. And I'm so like, my favorite show ever is Friday Night Lights. Like, I know that that's not deep South. Like, Texas
Are you
probably
talking
isn't
like
deep
Texas?
South.
Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about probably like rural Georgia or something. Like, I don't know. But I know that people in the South have opinions about other people in the South, but that has been my favorite TV show forever. And there's just something about like high school football and like guns and living on a ranch or on a farm kind of thing that is so I think I'm a cerebral person who is in my head a lot, and what I really would like is to be more on the ground. What I
Yeah.
need is to be more on the ground, and that speaks to that need is to just yeah. So that's always been interesting to me, and also like I also grew up in lots of different places all over the world, and so people always ask me like, do you like traveling? And I'm like, no, I hate traveling. The biggest dream I have is to like live in one place. To be like situated is like a fantasy of mine.
Grounded.
Yeah,
People like
and
you
I
and I need
understand.
grounding.
Yeah, I understand that people who have had the opposite are different, and this is again same but different idea is probably speaks to like why I became Orthodox too. Like I wanted stability, patriarchy, like tradition, because I've never had that. But temperamentally, people who have been different. Oh, one last thing. So uh, there's this funny story I told my friend today, who I spoke to on the phone, who lives in London. That I was like, actually, the reason that I became Christian was because my mom has a driver, so she has and this is a normal thing in Kenya to have people who like clean your house and drive you around and stuff. And he recognized maybe 3 years ago that I was really struggling. So he took me to his church, and it was oh my gosh, like the most evangelical church imaginable. Like they have these churches in Kenya that are just like huge tents, and it's like a big revival thing all the time. And the priest just like, it's not even a priest, what is it, the preacher, he talks for like 4 hours, and it's just like shouting. They had 8 like money, what is it called when they like
Offerings.
send around, yeah, like 8
Offering
offerings. It's
plates.
just like, this is insane. And then at some point, towards the end, it was, I guess it's an altar call. He was like, okay, so there's 20 people here who need to come up and get, blessings and whatever. And then towards the end, he was just like saying things that were so like clearly, distinctly related to me. And I was like, oh, I don't know if they like told him stuff about me, but whatever. It just needed to end at some point. So I just went up and this altar call, but it was purely so that we could all get out of here. And that actually was the moment that made me Christian. I hate to say it, but like, yeah, then after that, I went to Catholic churches. I went to the Orthodox church a few times. Like I went to Methodist, lots of churches. But when I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, ultimately I became Orthodox. But the thing that like got me going on this Christian journey was actually this weird altar call at this evangelical church. And there is part of me that feels that is why I'm not so tied to a denomination in a way. Like Jesus found me, and then I was like at a mental hospital and was on the floor and I heard like Jesus talk to me. Lots of things happened, but um that experience at that evangelical church, it did do something to me. So as much as I'm not going to go to that church now, but I think it changed my life. So I think Jesus is where Jesus is, and it frustrates me a little when people are so. Theology is like so interesting, and if you're a cerebral person, you're gonna want to look into it and be interested. But it's also a trap. It can be so tied up in like the thinking about it that
Mm-hmm.
really what made me Christian was these embodied experiences of like feeling Jesus's love. Um, so I just like, yeah, I'm Orthodox, and like part of that is theologically, yeah, but also part of it is temperamental and like I don't know how constructive all of these conversations are sometimes. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think they can be. I think that's probably a relatively good place to wrap it up because I have to go to the bathroom. But
Yeah.
and also I try to not make these.
Yeah, no,
When I
this
hit
is
about
a
an
good
hour, I don't want to make them too long.
good
But I
place
think
to
it is.
end.
Yeah, it is true. Like I very much agree with that. I like that saying that I saw in a YouTube comment once where like it was essentially like not all roads lead to God, but God will be found on every road.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where whatever gets you there gets you there, and that's not
yeah.
necessarily an apologetic for. That's not a prescription for every
Mm-hmm.
means that God uses to get people where they need to go, but it can definitely happen because that's true. There's a lot of beauty. That's also why I'm not evangelical about orthodoxy. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like it's great in many ways, and I love it. But I also realize, like I was saying before, how like if we spend enough time together, whatever I thought that we had I'd get the rug pulled out. Whatever I thought
Mm-hmm.
the solidarity was between you and I would disappear. That happens in everything. Like that will happen in Orthodoxy. Like hang out in an Orthodox church long enough and it will disappoint you. And
Yeah.
what I always kind of find comfort in is that like if I went to a different parish, it would probably be different. The priests that
Mm.
I have had have always been pretty gracious and hands off. They're not like rigorist types. And I really do love the theology. Like you'll find all sorts of people. I mean, online you'll definitely find people who would disagree with me about all this kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, and how much of this is projection and how much of it is true and how much of it is just hope, I think Orthodoxy is a personalist religion. Like I do think like my priest when I first converted, this will be my last word, but he said,
Mm-hmm.
I was actually talking with Father John Bear. I was riding in a
Mm-hmm.
car to like some lecture with him. I didn't even know who he was at the time. And he asked, because I had just converted, and he asked like what it was why I converted and my story. And I was telling him, and my priest was just helping me a little bit. And he said, it felt free. And it really did, because all of my religious upbringing was like, I have to get the ideas figured out.
Yeah.
Like I have to believe the right things. I have to get the ideas figured out. And in Orthodoxy, I didn't have to. Like it kind of released me from
Yeah,
that, and I was
and
just
I get
like,
that.
hell yeah, this feels nice.
Yeah, and the thing you said about your parish quickly, like I love my priest actually, and I love the friends that I've made at church. It actually comes down to like I feel at home here.
Yeah.
If I was at a different parish, like you said, probably maybe it would be different. But I'm not, and what you've said about like it feels kind of Protestant to be Orthodox is true. I think people who aren't Orthodox think of it as this really strict, like it doesn't feel that way to me. It feels the freest to me. Um, so yeah, that's that.
Nice. Well,
Yeah. So
thank
let's
you. We
talk
should,
again sometime soon.
yeah, let's we'll we should figure out, because I do want this to be recurrent, and because I committed to it. So I've painted
Mhm.
myself into a corner. And then with Matt C, I want to have a recurrent thing with him too.
How soon do you wanna
So
do
I'm
it?
gonna
How many
be,
weeks?
yeah, I will, it'll be a few weeks at least, because I'm gonna be out of commission for a while. But I'll email you about more of the details about that.
Okay, cool.
And hopefully we
Yeah,
can figure it out. It's nice that you can
all
do
right.
this time of day though, because that's what's usually most convenient for me. So
Yeah, this is actually great for
um
me. It's like 4 p.m. my time, so that works good. That works
all right. I should
well.
also figure out, I wish I was better at media stuff. I don't know how to, I don't know what to do. I just want to play, I want to play Jeff's Super Mario Cat thing to close us out,
Okay.
and then we'll leave. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Awesome. One day I hope to understand what that is about, but like, great.
Have you not heard this yet?
I've heard it I mean, you play it every time you do a stream, but like, where did this originate? What is it
It's
about?
just, I think I don't, so yeah, it's
Is the
because
signature?
because I'm because one of my Lucasms is I think ahead of my head, and especially when I'm
Mm,
live streaming, monologuing,
mm,
I'm just speaking off the cuff. I have general ideas of things that are on my head and that inspire
mm.
me, but I talk so fast and so frenetically that I really don't know what I'm going to say.
Mhm.
And I don't know. And at some point on some stream, I like meowed like a cat, and I just said like meow meow, and I said hello kitties or something, and then it like became a thing. I think mainly because
Uh,
of Lucas Boss Van Oss. And then somebody like some people started saying like they would put cats in the comments or meow meow or something, and then it just became this thing that I did. And then Jeff had apparently done that. Jeff P, who's the guy who brought
uh-huh.
me out of the lurk. So
Mm,
like it was Job, and then Jeff, and then I came, and then I reached out to Jeff. So that was kind of, and then we were all buddies. There's a bunch of old Randos United videos with Jeff and Job and me. But he made that for his family or something, and then he just sent it to me because it felt like
oh,
on
okay, cool.
brand.
That's great. Well, just want to say I do really appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, don't let the bastards get you down. I think it's helping us, some of us at least.
Nice.
So thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the encouragement, and bye bye everyone in
All
recording.
right.